Medieval architects were masters of light manipulation centuries before electricity. Their secret? Stained glass that transformed sunlight into colored patterns, polished metal mirrors that bent light around corners, and windows positioned to catch every minute of daylight. This wasn't just illumination, it was psychological warfare using light. Imagine a medieval lord paying in gold for something as basic as light. In castle times, illumination wasn't something people took for granted. It was a valuable commodity. The cleanest, brightest light came from beeswax candles, which were so prized they sometimes served as currency in transactions. Beeswax candles burned cleaner than tallow candles made from animal fat. They didn't produce heavy smoke or unpleasant odors. But the production process made them expensive. Workers had to harvest wax from beehives, purify it, then carefully hand-dip wicks to form each candle. A single pound of beeswax required the combined output of dozens of beehives over an entire season. Only nobility and wealthy merchants could regularly afford beeswax candles. Accounts from English castles show lords stockpiling beeswax like treasure. One ledger from Windsor Castle recorded the purchase of 10 pounds of wax for the equivalent of a skilled worker's monthly wages. Common people relied on cheaper tallow candles instead. These gave off a dim, flickering light and smelled like burning fat. Tallow candles dripped more and burned faster, forcing frequent replacements. Some households didn't use candles at all. They made do with rushlights, which were reed stalks dipped in leftover animal fat. The lighting hierarchy reflected medieval society itself. Clean, steady light for the wealthy, smoky and unpredictable light for everyone else. But even beeswax had dangers lurking in its glow. That flickering flame everyone relied on came with risks some couldn't imagine. Keeping a castle lit was a full-time job for dozens of servants. Torches burned fast, sometimes lasting just 2 hours before needing replacement. In large castles, teams of workers rotated in shifts solely to maintain lighting, with staff constantly moving through corridors to swap out dying torches for fresh ones. Most torches were simple wooden shafts wrapped in resin-soaked cloth, producing thick smoke along with their flickering light. Smoke stains on castle ceilings still visible today show how much soot these torches generated. Fire was a constant threat. Records from Windsor Castle show several major fires started by torch embers falling onto rushes strewn across floors. Wealthier households sometimes used lanterns instead. Metal or glass housings protected the flame, reducing fire risks. Oil lanterns burned cleaner than torches when fueled with expensive fish or olive oil. But most castles reserved these for private chambers, sticking with torches in common areas due to lower costs. During sieges, lighting became a tactical consideration. Castle defenders rationed torches carefully. Too much light revealed positions to attackers, while too little left guards stumbling in darkness. Some garrisons switched entirely to lanterns to minimize visible smoke trails that could betray their positions at night. The constant need for torch maintenance revealed another problem. Keeping fires burning required enormous amounts of fuel. Servants gathered tree resin, animal fat, and any flammable oils they could find. Some used creative solutions like oily seeds when supplies ran low. This relentless demand for combustible materials meant lighting a castle required both labor and resourcefulness. All these fire-based solutions shared one common problem. They produced heat as well as light. In summer months, dozens of torches could make stone halls unbearably hot. This explains why castle architects designed massive fireplaces, not just for warmth, but to better manage all those flames lighting the castle's interior. A single fireplace could illuminate an entire great hall when designed properly. These massive stone structures served as the central feature of castle living spaces, providing both heat and light for daily activities. The largest fireplaces stood tall enough for a grown man to walk into, with openings wide enough to roast an entire ox. Maintaining these fireplaces required staggering amounts of firewood. Records from Warwick Castle show they burned through 30 cartloads of wood per day during winter months. The castle employed full-time woodcutters just to keep up with demand. Firewood expenses often ranked among the highest costs in castle account books, sometimes exceeding food budgets. Castle designers used several tricks to maximize a fireplace's light output. Polished metal reflectors placed behind flames bounced light further into rooms. Light-colored stones surrounding the fireplace helped diffuse the glow. Some great halls positioned their main fireplace opposite windows to combine natural and firelight during daytime hours. Fires burned continuously in most castle fireplaces. Restarting a cold fireplace took too much time and effort, so servants kept at least embers smoldering overnight. The fire master, a specialized servant in larger castles, managed all fireplaces and stoves. His team worked in shifts to add logs, clear ashes, and monitor safety. The strategic placement of fireplaces reveals how carefully medieval architects planned lighting. They often positioned them near seating areas where people gathered, but far enough from tapestries and wooden furniture to prevent fires. Smoke channels built into castle walls carried fumes outside while preserving heat. Some castles even had connected fireplace systems that shared heat between rooms. This careful balance of light, heat, and safety shows how fireplaces served multiple purposes beyond simple warmth. Their flickering light created moving shadows that made stone halls feel alive after dark. The constant glow provided psychological comfort during long winters when daylight lasted just 8 hours. While fireplaces solved many lighting problems, they couldn't replace daylight entirely. This forced castle designers to pay careful attention to window placement and construction. The solution they developed turned windows into sophisticated light-gathering tools centuries before modern solar technology. Medieval architects operated as the first solar engineers long before the concept existed. They didn't have photovoltaics or scientific calculations, but they understood how to maximize daylight with precision. Windows weren't just openings. They were carefully positioned light traps designed to capture every possible ray of sunlight throughout the day. In castles where every candle counted, architects squeezed maximum value from natural illumination. Glass presented the first challenge. It was expensive and relatively rare during the medieval period, imported at great cost from specialized production centers. A typical castle window might only be about a foot square, just enough to let light in while keeping heat from escaping. The wealthy could afford larger windows, but even nobles had to balance light against heat loss during winter. Many windows had wooden shutters that could be closed at night or during cold weather. Stained glass transformed sunlight into something more than just illumination. In chapels and great halls, colored glass pieces joined by lead created luminous patterns that shifted throughout the day. Reds, blues, and yellows projected onto stone floors and walls, creating moving displays without any moving parts. The glass wasn't just decoration. Certain colors were believed to have spiritual significance and could affect the mood of a space. Mirrors helped solve the problem of dark corners. Polished sheets of silver or bronze placed near windows redirected sunlight deeper into rooms. A single mirror could effectively double a window's reach, bouncing light onto work surfaces or reading areas. Some castles used multiple mirrors in sequence to carry light around corners and down passageways that never saw direct sunlight. Window placement followed strict solar logic. Architects oriented major windows toward the south, where they'd capture maximum daylight. The Great Hall at Dover Castle shows this principle in action. Its main windows face precisely south-southeast to catch morning light. Windows got smaller on north-facing walls where they provided less benefit. During summer months, exterior overhangs blocked some direct sunlight to prevent overheating. Winter required special adaptations. Larger windows on southern exposures helped compensate for shorter days. Some castles installed inner wooden shutters with small openings that could be adjusted to control both light and drafts. In the coldest regions, builders sometimes used thin sheets of horn or oiled parchment instead of glass. These materials let some light through while providing better insulation. Glazing techniques gradually improved over the medieval period. Early windows often used small panes of glass held together by lead strips, while later designs could incorporate larger single panes. The thickness and quality of glass directly affected how much light passed through. Another reason wealthier castles appeared brighter inside. Some accounts describe wealthy households rubbing their window glass with vinegar and ashes to improve clarity. Light management extended beyond window design. Interior walls were often whitewashed to reflect more light deeper into rooms. Tapestries and wall hangings were moved seasonally. Lighter colors near windows in winter, darker tones in summer to reduce glare. Even furniture placement considered lighting, with reading chairs and work tables clustered near the brightest areas. The system wasn't perfect. On cloudy days or during long winters, Castles still relied heavily on firelight, but the careful attention to window placement and design significantly reduced dependence on expensive candles and smoky torches. Modern sunlight studies of medieval buildings confirm their effectiveness. Some castles capture up to 70% of available winter sunlight through their window arrangements. These techniques didn't just apply to grand castles. Smaller manor houses and even some peasant dwellings used similar principles on a reduced scale. Cottage windows might face south, with sleeping areas to the north where temperature fluctuations were less extreme. The basic understanding of solar orientation appears consistently across medieval buildings of all types. Window design became particularly important during sieges when fuel supplies couldn't be replenished. A castle with good natural lighting could conserve its candle and torch reserves for essential nighttime defense. Some besieged garrisons removed window coverings entirely to maximize daylight, despite the cold. This careful light management often made the difference between holding out or surrendering when supplies ran low. The development of medieval windows shows a clear progression toward more sophisticated light control. Early Norman castles had narrow slits primarily designed for defense, while later Gothic structures incorporated enormous windows that flooded interiors with light. Each design balanced multiple factors: defense requirements, climate conditions, available materials, and changing aesthetic preferences. What seems like simple architecture actually represents centuries of accumulated knowledge about capturing and controlling sunlight. Modern passive solar design borrows many principles from these medieval innovations: proper orientation, thermal mass, and strategic window placement. The main difference is that medieval builders developed their solutions through observation and trial rather than scientific theory. These lighting strategies had unintended consequences. The focus on southern exposure influenced entire castle layouts, often determining where important rooms were placed. Throne rooms and chapels typically got the best light, while service areas were relegated to darker northern sections. This created an unintentional hierarchy of spaces based on sunlight access that reinforced social structures. Stained glass windows served another practical purpose beyond their beauty. The lead framing that held the glass pieces together absorbed some of the sun's heat, helping reduce cracking from thermal expansion. This same principle appears in modern window design, where metal framing helps manage temperature-related stress on large glass panels. The evolution of window design directly impacted castle comfort. Earlier castles with small windows tended to be dark and damp, while later designs with better glazing created brighter, drier interiors. This may have contributed to improved health. Sunlight kills mold and bacteria, while the UV radiation passing through glass helped disinfect indoor spaces naturally. Medieval builders didn't have light meters or sun angle calculators, but they developed rules of thumb that worked. Many castles show window placement based on simple proportions. Window height often equals about 1/3 of the room's height, for example. These empirical guidelines created consistent results across generations of builders with varying skill levels. The next challenge came when castles faced siege conditions, forcing inhabitants to adapt their lighting strategies drastically. Windows that had provided beautiful illumination suddenly became vulnerabilities that needed covering after dark. The careful balance of light and security would be tested in ways that ordinary castle life never required. During sieges, light became as valuable as food in a castle's survival equation. Every candle and torch represented precious fuel that couldn't be replaced once the castle gates closed. Commanders implemented strict lighting rationing, dividing available supplies into categories. Absolute essentials like guard posts and the infirmary got priority, while banquet halls and bedrooms went dark. The hierarchy of light revealed what truly mattered when survival hung in the balance. Soldiers standing night watch received careful allocations, typically one beeswax candle per 4-hour shift if supplies allowed. These clean-burning candles were reserved for areas where smoke could compromise visibility. Tallow candles became the siege workhorse, though their acrid smoke forced defenders to choose between fresh air and illumination. Kitchen staff learned to work with minimal light, memorizing pot locations and cooking largely during daylight hours. Natural light became a strategic resource during sieges. Castle inhabitants removed unnecessary window coverings, sacrificing warmth for visibility. Servants polished existing mirrors and sometimes hung additional reflective surfaces to bounce sunlight deeper into interior spaces. Every minute of daylight was utilized for essential tasks: repairing armor, grinding grain, or tending wounds. At dusk, non-critical activities ceased entirely to conserve fuel. Improvised lighting solutions emerged from desperation. When proper candles ran low, people rendered fat from slaughtered livestock to make emergency tallow. Siege accounts mention soldiers burning old leather shoes or book bindings when nothing else remained. Some castles collected pine resin from nearby trees before siege lines closed, storing the sticky substance to waterproof torches later. Even fish oil from kitchen stores might end up in lanterns when alternatives disappeared. Torches became tactical tools rather than general lighting. Guards carried them along walls at irregular intervals to disguise patrol patterns from observers outside. The number of torches visible became psychological warfare. Too many suggested plentiful supplies, while too few revealed weakness. Some commanders implemented torch rotation systems where the same lights move between positions to create the illusion of greater numbers. Darkness became both weapon and vulnerability. Attackers might scale walls during moonless nights, while defenders feared giving away positions with careless illumination. Guards developed systems of shading their lights with hands or shields when peering outward. Hidden alcoves near gates often held emergency lanterns that could be uncovered quickly if attackers breached outer defenses after dark. The lighting rationing extended beyond practical concerns. It affected morale. Chroniclers note how commanders maintained some lights in the Great Hall even during severe shortages, understanding that complete darkness eroded civilian spirits. Strategic placement of a few candles in common areas maintained the illusion of normalcy. Chapel lights often stayed burning longest, providing psychological comfort alongside physical light. Children and non-combatants took on new roles in light management. They collected every scrap of usable wax from drippings, filtered old tallow for reuse, or trimmed wicks to extend burn times. Some siege accounts describe children being stationed as light runners, carrying messages between posts to reduce unnecessary torch use along corridors. Every pair of hands helped stretch dwindling reserves. Fireplaces became central lighting hubs during sieges. While still providing warmth, their primary function shifted to enabling nighttime work in select areas. Armorers and fletchers clustered around hearths to repair weapons by firelight. The largest fireplaces sometimes had multiple workstations radiating outward from the central flame, each benefiting from the same light source. The duration of sieges directly influenced lighting adaptations. In short sieges, castles might maintain normal patterns until the final days. During year-long standoffs like the Siege of Kenilworth, 1266, lighting strategies evolved through distinct phases, from initial rationing to desperate improvisation when beeswax supplies vanished entirely. Some garrisons reported burning furniture and wall hangings in the final weeks before surrender. Light discipline extended to sound as well. Servants wrapped torch handles to prevent telltale clattering during night movements. Guards developed hand signals to reduce unnecessary shouts that might necessitate bringing lights closer for communication. The entire castle adapted to operating with minimal illumination, developing new routines and pathways through familiar spaces. Medical care faced particular lighting challenges. Nighttime wound treatments required precious candles held close by assistants. Some infirmaries used polished metal reflectors to concentrate light on operating tables. The need for steady light likely influenced the development of early surgical tools that required less precision than their modern counterparts. Records from the Siege of Chateau Gaillard, 1203-1204, reveal how lighting shortages compounded other problems. As supplies dwindled, defenders couldn't see to repair siege damage or spot early signs of illness. Darkness became another weapon in the attacker's arsenal, as they timed assaults to coincide with new moon periods when defenders struggled most. The psychological impact of perpetual darkness appears in multiple siege accounts. People reported losing track of time without daylight cues, while others described vivid dreams from sleeping near constantly burning tallow candles. Some commanders rotated troops between bright and dark posts to prevent morale collapse among those stationed in perpetually shadowed areas. Nearly every siege account mentions the moment when lighting reserves reached critical levels. This often preceded surrender by weeks, as the inability to see at night made defense unsustainable. The final days before capitulation might see only 3 places illuminated: the commander's quarters, the infirmary, and whatever section of wall faced imminent attack. This extreme conservation of light resources reveals how medieval people prioritized survival essentials. Their ability to stretch finite supplies through rationing and improvisation often determined whether a castle endured or fell. The same ingenuity appeared in other siege adaptations, from food preservation to water recycling. But lighting presented unique challenges of being both necessity and liability. While men managed the military aspects of siege lighting, women played a crucial role behind the scenes. Their traditional responsibilities for household lighting became vital military support when castles came under attack. From candle making to rationing decisions, women's expertise often determined how long a castle's lights and defenses could hold out. Candle making in medieval castles wasn't just a household chore, it was a specialized craft controlled by women. These keepers of light held knowledge passed down through generations, mastering techniques that turned simple wax and wicks into the castle's most valuable resource. Their expertise determined whether a great hall shone with clean light or sat shrouded in smoke. Women managed every stage of candle production, from collecting raw materials to final preparation. They knew which local herbs could improve light quality when added to wax. Some recipes included crushed bay leaves to reduce smoke, while others used lavender to mask the smell of burning tallow. The best candle makers kept their exact mixtures secret, sharing them only with daughters or trusted apprentices. The process began with careful wax preparation. Beeswax needed filtering through fine cloth to remove impurities that caused uneven burning. Tallow required rendering, slowly melting animal fat to separate clean oil from gristle and meat scraps. Women supervised this smelly, dangerous work near kitchen fires, skimming the purest fat for the highest quality candles. Resins played a crucial role in candle making. Pine resin added to tallow made it harder and longer lasting. Some recipes included tree sap or beeswax to improve the candle's texture. The right resin mixture could make cheap tallow burn almost as cleanly as expensive beeswax. Women tested different combinations, remembering which worked best for various needs: bright light for sewing, long-burning candles for night watches. Wick preparation required equal skill. Women spun flax or cotton into threads of just the right thickness, too thin, and the wick would drown in melted wax. Too thick, and it produced excessive smoke. The best candle makers knew how to braid wicks that curled as they burned, maintaining an ideal flame height without constant trimming. Beeswax represented the pinnacle of their craft. Women who kept castle apiaries became vital members of the household. They developed methods to harvest wax without destroying bee colonies, using smoke to calm the insects before carefully removing honeycomb. A single hive might produce only 1 pound of usable wax per season, making every ounce precious. The candle-making process itself was tedious work. Dipping wicks repeatedly into warm wax required patience and timing. Each layer needed to dry completely before adding the next. For tapers, this might mean 50 dips or more to build up sufficient thickness. Women often worked in groups, with some maintaining wax temperatures while others handled the dipping. Storage was another responsibility. Women knew to keep finished candles in cool, dry places away from pests. Some wrapped them in linen soaked with herbs to repel moths and mice. In damp castles, they might store candles with sacks of rice to absorb moisture that could ruin the wicks. Light quality control fell to women as well. They tested new batches by burning samples in closed spaces, checking for smoke levels and odor. Poor quality candles were relegated to servants' areas, while the best went to the lord's chambers. Some households kept special feast candles reserved for important occasions, made with extra beeswax and scented oils. During sieges, women's candle-making skills became survival knowledge. They taught others how to stretch supplies by mixing beeswax with remaining tallow. Some devised emergency candles using cloth strips dipped in saved bacon grease or rendered horse fat. Every bit of flammable material was collected and repurposed. The rationing system was typically a woman's domain. They decided which areas received light based on need rather than rank. A surgeon treating wounds might get priority over a nobleman's vanity lighting. Women kept detailed records of candle stocks, calculating how long supplies could last under siege conditions. Children learned light conservation early. Mothers taught them to work near windows during daylight and use rushlights for simple tasks. Girls practiced candle making with leftover wax, mastering the basics before being trusted with precious materials. Even play activities sometimes involved pretending to ration light during imaginary sieges. Herbal knowledge extended beyond candle making. Women knew which plants could produce makeshift lamp oils in emergencies. Some experimented with crushed berries to color wax for signaling candles. Others developed systems using scented candles to mask the smells of crowded siege conditions. The social hierarchy of light was enforced by women. They decided when servants could have candles and how many. In some castles, maids received measured lengths of candle each week and faced punishment if they burned through them too quickly. This control over light access gave women subtle power in castle politics. Cleaning and maintenance of lighting fixtures also fell to women. They polished metal candle holders to maximize reflectivity and trimmed chandelier wicks to prevent smoking. Some developed special tools for reaching high-mounted fixtures without wasting candles to light their work. Women's lighting knowledge wasn't written down but passed through demonstration. A mother might show her daughter how to test wax purity by chewing a small sample. Others used songs to remember complex recipes with verses detailing ingredient proportions. This oral tradition preserved techniques that varied by region and available materials. The seasonal aspects of lighting were managed by women. They adjusted candle use based on daylight hours, storing up supplies during summer for winter needs. Some kept lunar calendars to predict when extra night lighting would be required. Weather predictions often factored into their rationing decisions. Special occasions required advanced planning. Women supervised the creation of decorative candles for holidays, sometimes shaping wax into religious symbols. Wedding candles might be scented with rose oil, while funeral candles burned slower with added salt. Each event had its own lighting traditions. The financial aspect was important too. Women often negotiated with merchants for wax and tallow supplies, knowing fair prices and quality markers. Some became expert at detecting adulterated wax that had been mixed with cheaper materials. Their purchasing decisions directly affected the castle's lighting budget. Medical uses of light were part of their knowledge. Women placed candles near sickbeds at specific angles to examine patients without casting disturbing shadows. They knew which herb-infused candles could help breathing in stuffy sick rooms. Some treatments involved carefully directing candle heat to warm, chilled extremities. Textile work relied on proper lighting. Women arranged candle placements for spinning and weaving, minimizing eye strain during long hours of detailed work. The best seamstresses had special candle stands that could be adjusted to shine light exactly where needed. Security measures involved lighting too. Women developed systems to quickly douse all candles if attackers breached the gates at night. Some castles had hidden candle stashes known only to the lady of the house, ensuring light would be available during emergencies. The psychological impact of light was understood intuitively. Women placed candles to maintain morale during long winters, creating well-lit gathering spaces. They knew when to permit extra lighting to combat the depression that came with endless dark days. Religious observances required particular lighting arrangements. Women ensured chapel candles burned at prescribed times and in correct numbers. Some lit candles in specific patterns representing prayers or commemorations. The rhythm of spiritual life followed their lighting schedules. As castles evolved, so did women's lighting techniques. The introduction of glass lanterns required new maintenance skills. Some women became expert at repairing cracked panes or adjusting wick mechanisms. Others learned to make specialized candles that fit new fixture designs. The transition to modern lighting methods happened gradually. Even as oil lamps became available, women maintained their traditional candle-making skills. Many households continued making their own candles well into the industrial age, preserving knowledge that had kept castles illuminated for centuries. This centuries-old expertise highlights how medieval women were far more than passive inhabitants of castles. Their control over light gave them significant, if often unrecognized, influence over daily life and survival. The same principles they developed, resource conservation, quality control, and adaptive use, remain relevant in modern emergency preparedness. In conclusion, the next challenge came when castles faced siege conditions, forcing inhabitants to adapt their lighting strategies drastically. Windows that had provided beautiful illumination suddenly became vulnerabilities that needed covering after dark. The careful balance of light and security would be tested in ways that ordinary castle life never required. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe for more.